Alright, I'm back with another Destiny 2 video. I am still managing to find some things to talk about with Destiny 2, even though we're in kind of our extended downtime period here. Tomorrow is apparently going to be one of the longest TWABs in history. A total rework of abilities on some level. I don't really know why it's like 18 pages long, but we will see how that goes. I think all anyone was like hoping for was another big Shatter Dive nerf, but this is the realization of Bungie nerfing abilities across the board in some way, maybe just in PvP, maybe not, in order to encourage gunplay more. So we're going to see what that's like, but that's going to be very intense. I plan to do a kind of live reaction read through there, but that is going to be a long video, and I sure hope I don't screw up the recording when I'm doing that, so I guess we'll see. In terms of what I want to talk about today, I wanted to kind of build on what I wrote an article about this morning about how we learned yesterday that Destiny 2 is essentially pulling. It depends who's pulling who. I think it's Bungie that is pulling, it's choosing not to renew its deal with Xbox, taking all of the expansions off of Xbox Game Pass. For now, it says this is just console and cloud, so I think it's still on PC Game Pass, and because it only came to PC Game Pass recently, so maybe that is lasting longer. But at first it said this was just Beyond Light, which launched on Game Pass last year, but it is also Shadowkeep and Forsaken, which have also been on Game Pass. They went on as part of that deal. So this creates kind of a weird situation in a lot of ways, complicating Destiny's already complicated onboarding process further, especially for Xbox players who may have been experiencing the game this way. Forsaken is an odd situation because this is happening, I think, December 8th, and the 30th anniversary is December 7th. That is also when Forsaken is being made free for the following 3 months because the Forsaken storyline is being vaulted when the Witch Queen hits. That is what is being vaulted this year, along with the Tangled Shore. So that destination and most of its strikes, I think they're keeping Warden of Nothing. The Dreaming City is staying, the Raid is staying, the Dungeon is staying, but all of the Forsaken actual story content and Tangled Shore are being removed. So it doesn't really matter if that's being taken off Game Pass because it's going free at that exact moment anyway. Shadowkeep is kind of in the middle here. It is the expansion from 2 years ago, but it is staying as a paid expansion. So far as we know, it is only Forsaken being made free. Shadowkeep is continued to be sold separately. There are fewer things tied to that maybe than Forsaken, and I certainly don't think the story missions are as good, but that will be like the first real onboarding point for the game now, like chronologically, after you do the whole Shahan intro quest. Like theoretically, you should be doing the Shadowkeep quest stuff first, which is a little bit of an odd situation, but then that leads to Beyond Light. Beyond Light is tricky because for Xbox players, Beyond Light launched on Xbox Game Pass, and there was no real reason to buy that because that happened. Obviously, games come and go from Game Pass all the time. It is not unusual, and yet with a live service game, when it's just like a certain chunk of the game comes out, the situation we have here now is you will not have access to Stasis, the entire subclass, because that is tied to Beyond Light. I don't think you will have access to Trials of Osiris because you need to own the last paid expansion. And if you don't, there will be this 3-month gap in between Beyond Light being taken off and Witch Queen, where I don't think you'd be able to play Trials unless you own Beyond Light. Weapons and armor pieces stay, so like anything you farmed there does carry over, but Stasis itself is going away. All of this leads me to the question of, is there not a better way to do all of this? And one idea I proposed on Twitter yesterday was, as I'm just thinking about Destiny and its onboarding process, here's the thing, it's hard to come up with ideas like this because I'm just one dude who plays the game a lot and writes about it a lot, makes videos about it a lot, and I understand that I like to think I know what I'm talking about when it comes to Bungie making decisions about this or that, but I am not in the company. I do not have access to their financials or their data or, deep insights as to why they make the kind of decisions they do. That said, I think it is a pretty clear issue that Destiny does not have a great onboarding experience at the moment. I think the best onboarding period it had was right after it went free to play, and you had the Red War campaign and 2 DLCs immediately accessible for people that they could play. And I think back in the day, they still had like the Forge. I think they still had the Forge and stuff active too before that was removed, and Opulence and all that stuff. So that was a long stretch of things. That was the beginning of Destiny 2, the Red War campaign, and then you could do all the stuff for free, and then you would catch up to Forsaken, and then that was like the start of the paid content. But all of that has been cut out now, and the entirety of the New Light experience is the little Shah Han quest that they did. You can play the playlists, and then there are just random things that are free, like Vault of Glass or like the Prophecy Dungeon or things like that. But in terms of like actual story content, there is nothing past that Shah Han quest, because Forsaken has not been free until this point, until 3 weeks from now. That has been paid, and then Shadowkeep is not free, Beyond Light is not free. My idea is, what if Destiny just went to a system where for expansions it was like a rolling onboarding system? So when a new expansion comes out, I guess we can debate whether or not it should be 1 year or 2 years, but the previous expansion or expansions go free. So Witch Queen comes out, depending on how generous you want to be, that would make Shadowkeep and Beyond Light free. So let's just, for the sake of argument, let's say it is just a year. And so then next week or next year, Lightfall rolls around, and then Witch Queen would be made free, assuming Lightfall comes out next February or something, if we're sticking on a year schedule. So the counter argument to here is like, okay, that's revenue Bungie is no longer making, and yet Destiny now exists in a space where it is charging at baseline probably around close to $100 a year for full content. What that means right now is an expansion is about $40. The season pass, if you add that onto it, is another $40. So $10 a season, $80, $90, $70. It's somewhere in that range. And then let's just assume that this 30th anniversary idea of a standalone paid dungeon or something is not the last time they do something like this, and that is $25, or it's $100 if you get all this stuff in a bundle. So if you pay $100, that is every bit of actual content coming in the year of the Witch Queen, year 5. So they're still releasing $100 worth of content a year at baseline as a revenue stream, even if the other expansions before it, in this case it would be 2 expansions, Shadowkeep and Beyond Light, would be free. And of course, we also have the fact that the Eververse store still exists. The Eververse store every season sells hundreds of dollars of items, potentially. Obviously, there's a lot you can buy with Bright Dust, but at the launch of every new season, there is a new set of ornaments per class. There are exotic weapon ornaments, exotic armor ornaments, sparrows, ghosts, whatever. And then every holiday event that happens within that time period, there is another set of armor sold for each class. And so it is quite literally hundreds of dollars worth of items that are, have the potential to be purchased at the microtransaction store. Transmog has only increased this. I will separate out my Transmog should be free argument from this right now, because as it stands right now, Transmog is charging $10 a set, and that is a new revenue stream they have added. My argument here is that it would benefit the game more to have a more coherent onboarding process in terms of like where people can start and what people can play for free compared to what we have now. We are already in a system where the previous year of seasonal content is being deleted, or almost mostly deleted. I think they're keeping Battlegrounds this time when the year goes on, so that's being evicted already. But one thing this would do is, in addition to giving people a lot of content to do up front, like new players aren't just doing Shah Han quest now, they can do the entire Shadowkeep storyline, the entire Beyond Light storyline, and in this case, that means everybody would have access to Stasis, so that doesn't exist as sort of some pay-to-win elemental subclass the way it kind of has this entire time, which has always been a little weird. But it also creates a situation where we also have to assume Bungie is going to keep content vaulting things, so when things go away and are vaulted, it is probably going to be something that is already free. So in this case, let's just assume a year from now in Lightfall, Shadowkeep is going to be vaulted. Under my system, Shadowkeep would have already been free for a year, and so people who came on board then would have gotten to play it over the course of this next year. When that doesn't happen, you get into a situation like what's happening now with Forsaken, where like it's being pulled off Game Pass, and then they're making it free, halfway through the middle of an extended season for 3 months, and then they're carving out like 50% of it and all the story missions, but not the Dreaming City and not the raid and not the dungeon and not this one strike. And like, it's very deeply confusing and weird. Whereas like under my system, Forsaken would have already been mid-free for at least the past year, or if not longer. And this would be a little bit less of a scramble to be like, surprise, like suddenly, you guys got to go play Forsaken if you want to experience this content before it goes away. Like, it's free for 3 months, so get on that. I just think that Destiny is kind of in desperate need of a more coherent process of like, how do I catch up? And this is something I have never been able to adequately kind of convey to either lapsed players that are trying to return now, or new players trying to get into the game. Because when they deleted all of the year 1 and year 2 content, it became very, very hard to like know what to recommend. Because like, okay, so theoretically, again, once you finish the very bare bones intro stuff with Shah Han, do I tell them to buy Shadowkeep? Like, is that a thing? Or like, should I just tell them to jump into the seasonal stuff now and like ignore all that? But if Shadowkeep is free, if Beyond Light was free, it becomes a lot easier to be like, okay, do the intro quest, learn the systems, head to the moon, do this expansion that's free, head to Europa, do this expansion that's free, and like then you're caught up with this year. And by that point, hopefully they've done enough content to kind of like understand the game at a base level. And then they show up and they're like, oh, like what's the next expansion? Oh, Witch Queen? I have to buy that? Cool. Like, I'll spend money on this now. So I feel like, Bungie gains a sale there that they may not have had otherwise if people just weren't recommended the game in the first place or didn't know where to start, so didn't even bother. I think this is a very, very common problem with the game and has started really ever since they began content vaulting. So like, here I am not making the argument today that I've theoretically made in the past about, let's end content vaulting, but like, I'm willing to just concede that they're not going to end content vaulting. This is going to be a thing that continues to happen. I do not see them being like, surprise, we're bringing, the Red War and all year 1 and 2 content we deleted back. Don't see that happening. So under the current system, I would think that a rolling release schedule of at least the paid expansions would be a good way to have enough free content to make that worth recommending as an onboarding vehicle, while also retaining $100 worth of content they're charging for people every year, based on people who want to keep current as it goes. And then the argument of like, okay, well, you can just wait a year and then the whole game's free. So if you wait a full year, if you wait till Lightfall, yeah, the Witch Queen would go free, but you would miss all of the seasonal content. Like, that is still going away at Lightfall. Like, under this system, to quote keep current with Destiny, you would still be buying the individual seasons, and those are still going away when the year is over. So to me, like, this is a middle ground, understanding that Bungie still wants a free-to-play element, still needs to do content vaulting, and then still needs to generate revenue from sales of content. I just don't see more pros than cons of like keeping the current system of like charging for these expansions for years and years after they are out. I know some other games in the genre may do that. It's not like the least common thing, but I don't think all of those games want to kind of continue to have the population Destiny has and continue to recruit players at this level, as Destiny has this grand bazillion year plan where they want people to be essentially lifetime Destiny players. But it is very hard to recommend the game right now, just based on the structure of it. Like, I would say Destiny is in the best spot it has been in a very long time in terms of like actual gameplay, how fun weapons are, like how balanced most builds are, like storytelling. Like, it is really shining in all these different categories, and yet it is still a very difficult game to recommend, and I think this would help with that. So again, I have no idea if this is remotely financially feasible or, all these other factors I may not be considering, but the more this keeps coming up, the more I keep having this idea in my mind of just making past expansions free when a new one comes out, which is something we have not seen for a very long time now, not since they kind of introduced the concept of New Light, and now we're in this weird middle ground phase with 3 months of free Forsaken and half of it being deleted and all this stuff. So anyway, we'll see if anything happens with that, but we probably won't know until Lightfall comes, so this is probably not super fruitful to discuss other than in theory right now. But anyway, I will see you guys tomorrow for the TWAB. I assume that's going to be, I don't know, maybe on the later side. Sometimes when they have the really huge ones, they get them out early, but to kind of be part of the news cycle for all that day, and if they have the draft already done, but I guess we'll see. So that'll be fun, and thank you guys for watching, and I will talk to you guys soon. Take care.